Good morning, my name is Daniela Gotchian and my presentation today will be on the hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, Ebola virus. So what is the hantavirus pulmonary syndrome? This syndrome is one of two potentially fatal pulmonary syndromes which is caused by the hantavirus. The other syndrome is a hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome. Most of the viruses that cause this disease is the Black Creek Kennel virus, New York virus, the Sin-Nombre virus, but all of these viruses are native to the United States. The virus that I'm specifically talking about, the hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, is caused by the Sin-Nombre virus. This can be found in deer mice in the United States, and it was identified first by the professor of the University of New Mexico, Terry Yates. Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome can be characterized by the sudden onset of shortness of breath with rapidly evolving pulmonary edema, which is mostly fatal in many individuals. The fatality rate of this disease is 38% worldwide. Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome was first recognized during the 1993 outbreak in the Four Corners regions of the southwestern regions of the United States. This was identified by Dr. Bruce Tempest, and it was originally known as the Four Corners disease. It was known as this name for a short period of time, but it was changed to the Sin-Nombre virus after complaints by Native Americans of regions of stigmatization. They thought that everything was bad about the name, stigmatizing them on a whole. And this virus was identified throughout the United States. It started off here. So the location of this disease. This disease can be found in rodents, and these rodents can be found in many rural areas such as forests, fields, and farms. The Sin-Nombre virus is located in the United States, but is mostly prevalent in the western and central parts of the United States and Canada, can be found in deer mice as well. The New York hantavirus is found in the white-footed mouse and is present in northeastern United States. The Black Creek Kennel virus is found in cotton rats and is present in southeastern United States. Most of these confirmed hantavirus pulmonary syndrome cases can be found throughout America, including Canada, Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Panama, Paraguay, and Uruguay. The epidemiology. Many regions and countries were affected by both syndromes of the hantavirus. In Asia, countries such as China, the Korean Peninsula, and Russia were affected by other syndromes of the hantavirus, the hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome, and this was caused by the Hantan, Pumila, and the Seoul viruses. In South America, hantavirus pulmonary syndrome was a result of the two viruses such as the Andes virus and the Laguna Negra virus, and this was prevalent throughout the regions. In North America, in the United States, there were minor cases of this syndrome, and this was caused by the Sin-Nombre virus, the Black Creek Kennel virus, the Bayou virus, and the New York virus. By 2010, many states were affected by this disease, and it had at least 30 more cases. In 2010, this was 30 more than the cases they had in 1993. And many of these cases were caused by shrews and moles, other than the deer mice. Some of these states included Texas, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Washington, Utah, and Dakota. In Canada, there were 3 confirmed deaths and 1 survivor in 2013. In Europe, there was a region-wide epidemic of the other syndrome, the hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome, and this was caused by 3 viruses, the Pumila, the Dobreva, and the Sarima virus. In Africa, there was a spread of hemorrhagic fever, renal syndrome, which was caused by the Sangasu virus. Overall, the virus really affected a lot of people around the world. The transmission of hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. This disease is transmitted by rodents. Rodents shed the virus in their urine, in their droppings, and their saliva, and it's mainly airborne transmitted. Many tiny droplets containing the virus get into the air, and this can be transmitted throughout many regions. It affects a lot of people. Other ways of transmission is when the infected rodent, it bites an individual, transmits the disease to that person by touching contaminated places and by eating contaminated foods that the infected rodents have already touched. The early symptoms of this disease. Hantavirus pulmonary syndromes, these early symptoms develop 1 to 4 days after infection. These symptoms are very similar to influenza. Such symptoms are fever, headaches, muscle aches, stomach problems, dizziness, and chills. Delayed symptoms develop 4 to 10 days after infection, and these can be fatal if not attended to. When lungs fill with fluid and shortness of breath, pulmonary infections. The diagnosis and treatment of hantavirus, pulmonary syndrome. Early diagnosis is very difficult because these syndromes are very much related to the influenza. The diagnosis of hantavirus pulmonary syndrome is permanent and concluded when the person is experiencing fever and fatigue and has a history of potential rural rodent exposure together with the shortness of breath. As of now, there is no specific cure or vaccine available for this disease, and early detection in intensive care, such as incubation and oxygen therapy, which is necessary for respiratory distress, is the only therapy available, but it's not a cure, it just helps you. The prevention of hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. There are 3 ways to prevent this. Seal up holes, gaps in the home and the garage. Trap up, place traps in and around the home to decrease rodent infestation. And clean up any open and easy to reach food. So, I collected data showing the surveillance of this disease and the prevalence of it, showing where it's spread and everything throughout the United States and other countries in the world. During the 1993 to 2013 epidemic in the United States, 624 cases of this virus was reported in 34 states around the United States. State of exposure was unknown for at least 27 cases, and 96%, so a total of 570 cases, were confirmed in West states close to the Mississippi River. Most of these reported cases were caused by the Sin Nombre virus. Some of them were also caused by the Bayou, Black Creek Canal, Monongahela, and the New York viruses. And there was a cumulative count for each state, which was current as of 2013, July the 9th. As you can see in this graph, it shows many of the western states close to the Mississippi River. There was like above 50 of them, as you could see in the darkened areas. In the lightened area was the lesser cases, 1 to 15 cases per state. And in the middle, the orangish colors, you could see there was like 60 to 50 average of cases. These states very close to Florida, there wasn't anything in there, but the western states, according to the research, was proven that the western states had more of the infections. This here is a summary showing the laboratory confirmed hantavirus pulmonary syndrome cases caused by viruses other than the Sin Nombre virus in the United States from 1993 to 2007. In Texas, there were 4 cases caused by the Bayou virus, and it was transmitted by the marsh rice rat. In Louisiana, there was 1 case also transmitted by this rat. In Florida, there was 1 case in 1993, and this was caused by the Black Creek Canal, and it was transmitted by the hispid cotton rat. In New York, there were 2 diseases caused by the white-footed mouse, and in Pennsylvania and West Virginia, there were 2 cases caused by the Monongahela virus, and these were transmitted by the deer mouse. All of these cases were actually between 1993 to 2007. It didn't reach until 2010. This map here is a total notified cases of hantavirus pulmonary syndrome in Brazilian states from 2001 to 2012. It shows like a geographical distribution of the virus in different regions of Brazil. As you could see, they were like one on the western half. They had more cases in the western half, especially they had Mato Grosso. They had 254 cases. Coming to the south, they had 87. Paraná had 181. Sao Paulo had 174. Santa Catarina had 276. They had a few scattered ones on the west. Rondônia had only 3, and the Amazonas had 6. But most of the cases were towards the west and the south areas of Brazil. This here shows a distribution according to sex, age, and criterion of confirmation, hospitalization, and evolution of this case. This was in the Indian settlement of Brazil. And as you could see, over 20 years old, there was no cases for the males, but for females there were. And underneath 5 years old, there were no cases for the females, but there were for the males. Overall, you could say there were a great amount of infections in the females in Brazil, in this Indian settlement, than in the males. The laboratory confirmed diseases were 9 in the males and 8 in the females. Non-clinically diagnosed and 1 clinically diagnosed in the females. Hospitalization, more males were hospitalized and left the Indian settlement, and there were more deaths in the males than the females. Overall, you could say that the deaths and the hospitalizations and the leaving of the settlement were more clinging towards the male sides of the settlement, but there were more females infected by this disease over 20 years old and less in the males underneath 5 years old. A total of this whole graph shows that there were approximately even numbers in the females and males, yet you could see the differences in the chart. This is a risk map for the hantavirus pulmonary syndrome caused by a different virus other than the Sin-Nombre virus. This was caused by the Andes virus in the southern Argentina in the A graph, and in the B graph it shows a map of Patagonia covering hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, and this was in 2014. As you can see, the south and the north of the regions on the A graph showed very low to null infections. Low was close to the west, but the red and the moderate and very high infections were shown towards the west of the regions. This was in both regions. As you can see, the little black spots in the B graph shows exactly the areas that were heavily populated and with infected citizens. So both of these shows that everything was towards the west. Most infections were towards the west of South Argentina. This graph here also shows the absence and the presence of the virus, and this was caused by the ANDV virus and the O. longicadotus virus. Right again, the western half parts of this hemisphere was infected, and the top and the bottom, northern, southern hemisphere were not infected. In the C and D chart, you could also see low, moderate, and high infections were also towards the west, scattered throughout the regions, and there was a heavy population of low infections and high and moderate infections towards the south and the west in this D graph. These were caused by the O. longicadotus virus, and these were caused by the ANDV virus. None of these were caused by the Sin-Nombre virus. This is a map of South America showing the Vidima and the Oran placement in 2010. Basically, in Argentina, the first cases clinically compatible with hantavirus pulmonary syndrome were reported in 1980 in the northwest Oran region in the Salta province. Between 1993 and 1996, 26 cases were reported in the province of Rio Negro, Argentina, in the Andean region. The mortality rate was greater than that of the United States. It was 51.85%, and there was important and rapid outbreak of this disease, and this was found in the El Bolson city. The overall conclusions from this, according to my data: hantavirus pulmonary syndrome is a fatal pulmonary disease. This is one of 2 syndromes, and it carries a fatality rate worldwide of 38%. Until this date, there is no known cure for this disease, and the symptoms are very close to influenza with severe lung fluid. Prevention is very simple: clean up, trap up, and seal up. According to the sources and the data, most of these confirmed cases of hantavirus pulmonary syndrome in the United States is caused by the Sin-Nombre virus, and this occurs in most of the western states. Many confirmed cases of this virus caused by other virus types other than the Sin-Nombre virus can be found in Texas, New York, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. In countries such as Brazil and South Argentina, there are extensive cases of hantavirus pulmonary syndrome caused by viruses other than the Sin-Nombre virus, and this can also be found in the western and southern parts of the country, with scattered cases throughout the north and eastern areas. Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome affected more older females than males in Brazil. The mortality rate in the Argentinian regions were very much higher than that of the United States, and most people rapidly dying in those countries due to lack of treatment. The United States has it better because of the first world status. And with no known cure for hantavirus pulmonary syndrome and a high death rate, awareness for this disease and its prevention methods, available treatment for the infected, and availability of health clinics were implemented through many countries that are prone to this virus, while focusing on regions with the highest infection rates. This is my works cited, and end of my presentation.